If you haven't been living under a rock, you know that poor Americans are becoming third world country poor. Lower to middle class families are falling into poverty. Upper middle class households are sliding into lower middle class. And it's just a matter of time before they fall into poverty too. Soon, most of us will be stuck somewhere between poverty and abject poverty, with extreme wealth on the other side of an ever-widening gap. And you probably already know this is only going to get worse. Nobody is coming to save us. Here's the thing. The American dream no longer exists. So why are we clinging to our egos? Too many people are struggling and suffering in silence right now because of pride. And that ego is going to hurt you more than anything else, because it prevents you from talking to your neighbors about starting a compost group, or growing on someone's unused land, or pooling money for bulk food purchases, or sharing rides to save on gas. Everyone stays isolated in their individual households, trying to survive alone, suffering because they refuse to work as a team or build community in their own neighborhood. So we need to look back to what peasants in medieval times did to protect themselves against the ruling elite, to what our great-grandparents did during the Great Depression, to what people in other countries did during financial collapse, because they survived. And their methods still work. This list of 7 survival hacks is based on exactly that research. Let's get into it. Number 7, grow on someone else's land. Here's something Depression-era people understood that we've completely forgotten. You don't need to own land to grow food on it. During the Depression, people grew victory gardens everywhere. Empty lots, unused land, backyards, front yards, neighbors' yards with permission, even windowsills. If there was dirt and sun, someone was growing food on it. And here's the part that will blow your mind. If you don't have money, don't have a house, don't have land, and don't know anyone with a yard, you can still do this today. Drive around any American neighborhood and you'll see that over 95% of backyards don't have a garden but have space to grow one. Especially elderly people or busy professionals who own homes but don't have the time or energy to use their yards. Here's what you do. Knock on doors. Tell them, "I'll grow a garden in your backyard. I'll do all the work, planting, weeding, watering, everything. In exchange for letting me use your space, I'll give you a third of the harvest." Do you know how many people would say yes to free fresh vegetables in exchange for literally nothing? A lot. This isn't theory. A Canadian grower named Curtis Stone did exactly this about 20 years ago in British Columbia. He was living in an apartment with no money and no land. He talked to 3 neighbors with big yards where nothing was happening. He asked if he could grow food in their backyards in return for a portion of the harvest. They all said yes. He built an entire business from that and made serious money. You don't need to build a business. You just need to cut your grocery bills and feed your family. Same principle, open your mouth and talk. Figure it out. Drop the ego and ask. Number 6, victory gardens for real savings. Let's talk numbers because this is where it gets serious. The average American family, 2 parents, 2 kids, spends roughly $15,000 a year on food. A proper victory garden can cut that in half. That's $7,500 back in your pocket every single year. So let me ask you, when was the last time you got a $7,500 annual salary increase? Probably not in a long time. And it's probably not coming in the future either. Instead of waiting for more money that's never coming, grow your own food. But here's where modern homesteading advice fails you. They tell you to grow tomatoes, lettuce, peppers, pretty food, low-calorie food, food that requires perfect conditions and fails the moment you get busy. Depression survivors grew calorie-dense staples, potatoes, dried beans, turnips, winter squash, onions, carrots, crops that stored for months without canning, crops that actually kept you alive through winter. 100 square feet of potatoes provides about 150,000 calories. The same space in tomatoes, maybe 15,000. Do the math. You can start small. A window box of herbs saves you $200 a year minimum. A 4x8 raised bed of potatoes saves you $800 to $1,200 annually. Scale up from there as you learn. The knowledge is free, the seeds are cheap. The return on investment is better than anything in the stock market right now. Number 5, stone soup and stretcher foods. During the Great Depression, this was called stone soup. And no, clearly they were not actually cooking rocks in their soup. Though I'm sure someone desperate enough tried. Here's what actually happened. Families or neighbors living close by would pool all their food scraps together. One person had a potato, another had half an onion, someone else had a bone from last week's chicken. Individually, not enough for a meal. Combined, enough to feed 20 people. But the real intelligence was understanding stretcher foods, ingredients that bulk up any meal and make it feed more people for less money. The main ones: potatoes, beans, flour, oats, rice, and lentils. These are foods you can add to soups, stews, casseroles, omelets, patties, even baked goods. They absorb flavors, add serious calories, and multiply your meals. A pound of dried beans costs about $1 and stretches into 8 to 10 meals when combined with other ingredients. This works today if you drop the ego and coordinate with neighbors or family. Everyone brings what they have. You cook together once or twice a week. Everyone eats better for less money. And those social bonds you build, they'll matter more than you think when things get worse. Modern version: organize a weekly meal prep group. 5 families, 1 kitchen, 1 day. Everyone brings ingredients. Everyone leaves with 5 complete meals. You've just saved time, money, and built the relationships that will keep you alive if this really goes sideways. Number 4, bulk buying cooperatives. Here's a vicious cycle you're probably stuck in. Buying in bulk saves money. But buying in bulk requires more upfront cash, so people on tight budgets can't afford to bulk buy, and they end up paying more per unit for everything, and it's a poverty tax. And it's by design. During the Depression, people figured out a workaround that still works perfectly today: bulk buying cooperatives. Here's how. Get 5 to 10 families together. Everyone chips in for 1 Costco or Sam's Club membership. That's $10 to $12 per family, instead of $60 to $120 alone. Then one person with a van or truck takes everyone's orders once a week and does a single bulk run for the whole group. The savings are immediate. Bulk prices are 30 to 50% lower than regular grocery stores on staples like rice, flour, beans, oats, canned goods, toilet paper, everything. But here's the genius part nobody talks about. Stores like Costco give you rewards cash back or checks once a year based on your purchases. A group buying cooperative doing weekly runs can easily generate $800 to $1,500 in annual rewards. That money covers next year's membership with cash left over to split among families. You've just turned a cost into a profit center while slashing everyone's food bills. This worked during the Depression, when people pooled money to buy directly from wholesalers. It works even better now because the infrastructure already exists. You just need to organize it, and organizing requires dropping your ego and talking to your neighbors. Number 3, the sprout system. This technique should be taught in every school but isn't, because it makes fresh vegetables too accessible and too cheap for the food industry's liking. Depression-era families discovered you don't need a garden to grow food. You need seeds, water, and a jar. Sprouting turns dried beans and seeds into fresh vegetables in 3 to 5 days, year-round, in any living space, apartments included. A 1936 home economic study documented one Chicago family growing enough alfalfa and mung bean sprouts on their kitchen counter to provide fresh greens for 7 people through entire winters. No soil, no sunlight. Just mason jars and water changes twice a day. The numbers. Sprouting increases vitamin C content by up to 600%, B vitamins by 300%, and makes proteins easier to digest. A pound of dried mung beans costs about $2 and produces 8 to 10 pounds of sprouts. That's a 4 to 1 or 5 to 1 conversion on food you can already store long term. Modern prepping pushes freeze-dried vegetables at $30 to $40 per pouch. Depression survivors turned $2 of dried goods into a week's worth of fresh produce in their kitchens. You can start today with dried lentils from any grocery store and a mason jar. If you're not doing this, you're missing the single most accessible fresh food source that works in apartments, blackouts, or complete infrastructure collapse. Number 2, the Skillsharing economy. During the Depression, money became unreliable or disappeared entirely, so people built networks of trading skills and labor instead of cash. Real example from 1935 rural Ohio. One farmer had a broken plow but could sew. Another had sewing work but owned a working plow. They traded labor, no money involved. A third farmer had neither but could provide childcare. All three families survived because they understood that in a collapsed economy, skills and favors become currency. This works today because most of us have skills we don't value. You can cook. Someone else fixes cars, another person cuts hair, someone knows carpentry, another is good with computers or bookkeeping. Start mapping this in your community now. Who knows what? Who needs what? Build those relationships before you need them. Because when money gets tight or worthless, the person who can fix your water heater in exchange for home-cooked meals is worth more than any amount in a frozen bank account. But this requires talking to people. It requires admitting you need help and offering what you can give. It requires dropping the ego and building community. A 1937 survey found families with 10+ active reciprocal relationships had children with 40% lower malnutrition rates than isolated families with similar incomes. The network was the survival strategy. Number 1, the grease economy. Everything you're throwing away right now could extend your resources by months. Starting with cooking fat. Depression households saved every drop: bacon fat, chicken fat, beef tallow, anything. Not primarily for flavor, though that helped. They saved it because grease was lubricant, waterproofing, preservation medium, soap material, and emergency calories all in one substance. A mason jar of saved bacon grease could waterproof boots for an entire winter, preserve meat without refrigeration using fat packing, become soap when combined with wood ash lye, lubricate tools and prevent rust, provide emergency calories when nothing else existed. One 1933 diary entry describes a Kansas woman rendering 2 tablespoons of grease from squirrel skin. She waterproofed her son's only pair of shoes with it. He wore them another full year. 2 tablespoons extended a critical resource by 12 months. Modern advice tells you to buy specialized products for each use. Depression survivors understood that simple substances with multiple applications were worth more than specialized ones. Today, stop pouring cooking grease down the drain. Strain it through cheesecloth into glass jars. Store it in the fridge. Use it for cooking, but keep some as multi-purpose resource. When boots leak, rub in grease. When tools rust, coat them. Need emergency candles, grease and string work perfectly. The principle: adaptability beats specialization in crisis conditions. Every time. Your grandparents weren't tougher than you. They just knew things you've never been taught. Things that work when money becomes unreliable, when supply chains break, when you need solutions that don't depend on systems that can fail. And here's the critical part. They dropped their egos and worked together. They talked to neighbors. They shared resources. They traded skills. They asked for help and offered what they could give. The good news? You can learn and implement every single one of these techniques right now today, while things still mostly work. That's your actual preparation, not the stuff you buy. The knowledge and community systems you build that can't be taken away. Victory gardens don't care about inflation. Sprouts don't care about supply chains. Skillsharing doesn't care if banks close. These techniques worked when the entire economy collapsed. They'll work when it happens again, but only if you drop the ego, open your mouth, and start building community now. If this made you think differently about what's coming, you know what to do. And if you want more forgotten knowledge that actually works when modern systems fail, I'll see you in the next one.